My parents paid for my degree out of college, which I was happy about, cost 37k. I was able to save up for a house, and now 4 years out of school I was able to buy my own condo, and my boyfriend and I are planning to get married, so I've been saving for that. I now have a healthy nest egg and am saving and investing along with that. Then last month they told me I have to pay for my sister's schooling, which was 62k. I don't think that fair, because they only gave me 37k for my schooling and never told them I had to pay them back or pay for my sister at all. They won't admit it, but I think they lost a lot money when my dad was stock trading and doing risky investments, since they sold their house right afterwards, saying they wanted to downsize. They also got super bitter and weird with money around our relatives, including picking a fight with my uncle who was always wealthy. No one would tell my sister or I what the fight was about, but now I assume it's because my parents lost most of their money and is angry my uncle wouldn't help. All my cousins had their tuitions paid, so it's embarrassing my sister wouldn't as well, which is my parents are insisting I paid. I told them and my sister I would give back 19k, which was half the amount for my schooling, so it would be like the 37k was split between us. They argued with me that I should be paying for her full schooling as my parents did for me, but I don't think that fair, as I'd rather have had 37k in debt to deal with than 62k in debt, especially when this was sprung up on me. I told them either take the 19k as half my tuition payment or I wasn't going to discuss it with them again. They then called my boyfriend to accuse him of influencing me to be greedy with my own family when I should be paying for my sister's full tuition amount. I was furious and told them they accepted the 19k and agreed to never bring up my sister's loan with me again, or I wouldn't have anything to do with this anymore and wouldn't invite them to the wedding. My mom yelled at me and told me I was an embarrassment to the family. My sister came back alone and told me she would take the 19k and have it be enough. I told her she had to tell me in front of our parents that she would accept the 19k, and she retracted what she said, saying she wasn't going to do that. I know she is hoping I give up and give her the money if my parents put enough pressure on me. You were fortunate to have your schooling paid, made an attempt to help out your sister, and were told that you were a disgrace to the family for not giving more. Not the idiot. Your parents did a wonderful thing for you, and it sounds like no conditions were made for you to receive that money. It's unfortunate that things are turning out differently for your sister, but 19k towards her tuition, along with potential grants, scholarships, and loans, is a huge gift. I just got out of grad school for under 100k, and I would be happily washing your car every week for the next 5 years if you had handed me 10k. Not the idiot. If you decide to give her 19k, it should be as a gift, not because you've been made to feel like you owe something. The fact that she wants more than that and expects it makes her sound entitled. She can take loans out, or maybe your parents should have been more responsible with their own money rather than messing it up. If you didn't have money, they would be bothering another family member who did and making up some other dumbass excuse. If you give them money, you're letting them know that you definitely can afford this, and they'll keep asking for money and leeching off of you with dumb excuses of how you owe them. Not the idiot. The fact that your parents expect you to pay all of her tuition and just brought this up shows they are doing poor financially. It's not your responsibility, but maybe if they would have been honest with you upfront, you may have offered the 19k sooner. Instead, they're acting really entitled as if she was your kid. What they are basically asking is that you pay for their poor financial decisions. You don't owe them that. There are consequences to actions and they have to live with that now. For context, my 24 boyfriend, 30, and I recently moved in together. It's something we've been talking about, and when his lease ended he moved into my apartment. I have a cat, Millie, who is my baby girl, that I've had since she was a kitten. Back when my boyfriend and I first started dating, he made the joke that if we were ever going to live together, he'd have to get rid of that cat, which I dismissed at the time. When he would come over he would ignore Millie, making jokes about how cats are stuck up, how much he's a dog person. Again, I dismissed this because he never acted hostile towards her. I figured it was just a preference. When we started to get serious about moving in, he asked if I would consider giving her away because he didn't like the idea of living with a cat. I almost laughed before realizing he was serious. I told him that under no circumstances would I get rid of my cat. I felt guilty about being unwilling to compromise, but he actually took it well and reassured me that if she was this important to me, he'd get over it. Fast forward to last night. I don't think he realized I was in the kitchen when he came home. Millie was on the couch and I heard him go into the room and give this sigh. Before I could call out, I heard him say, "You're so terribly worthless." It terrified me because I've never ever heard him speak with such malice. He sounded like a different person. It was just so cold and hostile that I panicked and rushed out there to see him looking at Millie. Here's where I might be the idiot. I completely freaked out. I was yelling, asking what he thought he was doing talking to her like that. He jumped and I scooped Millie up and told him to leave my apartment right now. He looked so stunned and started to argue, asking where was he supposed to go. I told him that I don't care, he just needs to leave. He was pissed and said he was going for a drive and slammed the door behind him. I immediately started sobbing and holding Millie. I was shaking and she could tell I was upset and kept cuddling me. She calmed me down, and later when he texted asking if he could come back, I said yes. I put Millie in the bedroom so we could talk. We were both a lot calmer, and I felt awful after he explained his side. I'll often call Millie little names, and he said he was just trying to be playfully mean too and misjudged his tone. But he said it felt awful that I chose a cat over him and that I called it my apartment when it's supposed to be our place. He told me he was constantly feeling second best to Millie, who I wouldn't even consider rehoming, and I had thrown him out over an animal when he's a person. I explained to him how much he means to me and apologized for ever making him feel like this wasn't his home. I think I might have overreacted, but I just don't know. He's my boyfriend and she's something I keep refusing to compromise on. But I also don't believe that he just misjudged his tone. Am I the idiot? The way a person talks about an animal or treats an animal is a good indication of the type of person they are. After all the talk about wanting to get rid of her, I could never trust him alone with her. How do I know he won't poison her? Physically hurt her? Or dump on the side of the road? If it was my boyfriend he would be gone, flat out gone. If you don't like cats or dogs that's fine, but when you are just nasty about it, then you cross a line. Not the idiot. Girl, he just played you. He must have the world's worst sense of humor to call something terribly worthless and to think it a joke. And you believed him? That car ride alone gave him the opportunity he needed to manipulate the situation in a way that worked for him. Notice how he said something cruel, and you still ended up being the one who apologized and reassured him. That wasn't a coincidence. Not the idiot. Your gut is telling you something is wrong here, and I think you should listen to it. It's one thing not to be a cat person, but it's disturbing for him to hate an animal you love this much. My boyfriend hated cats and grumbled a bit about having to live with one. But he never once even came close to implying that I should get rid of my cat. We moved in together, and he now loves my cat more than anything in the world. I think the way people treat animals says a lot about their character. My husband and I have 4 kids: Henry, 35, Lisa, 33, Elizabeth, 30, and Sean, 28. We bought a 6-bed and 7-bath house for next to nothing before Henry was born. Now that all of our kids have moved out, we decided to sell our house and buy a condo on the beach. Henry and Lisa both live near me, and my husband and I'd say we have a good relationship with both of them, but we're closer with Henry. He and his wife, Abigail, 36, have us over for brunch every Sunday. They come over with their kids, 3 and 5, often, and we would go on vacations together before 2020. Lisa and I talk on the phone maybe once a week, and she comes over or invites us over maybe twice a month. Henry and Lisa currently live in a 2-bedroom house, but Lisa recently found out she's pregnant and they're looking for something bigger. They ask us to help them with house hunting, but housing prices have drastically increased since we bought our house, and they wouldn't be able to afford anything more than 3 bedrooms, even though they both have good jobs. We offered to sell them our house for the price of the house they were going to buy, and they were elated. We drew up a contract and have a payment plan in place. We have enough money from the sale to buy the condo we were looking at. Lisa and I were talking today and she asked how selling the house is going, and I told her that we're selling it to Henry and Abigail. She was enraged when I told her and said that we should have offered to sell our house to her too since she's looking for a bigger place too. She didn't tell us this. I told her that Henry and Abigail need the space more because they have kids and she's single and childless. Then she started to yell at me for discriminating against her because she's single and childless. Am I the idiot for selling my house to my son and not my daughter? You're the idiot. This basically screams favoritism and unfairness. You don't even mention your younger two children, but the fairest thing to do would have been to split whatever extra from the sale of your house 4 ways. Or give nothing to any of them. By selling this asset to your oldest child at a super cheap rate, you have effectively screwed the other 3 children out of any portion of that house they could have inherited. It also sounds like you wouldn't be able to repeat this grand gesture for your other kids if they choose to start families. Not the idiot. It's your house to sell to who you want, but in selling the house at such a discounted price, you have given an incredible gift to your son, while simultaneously denying your daughter any share of that in any future inheritance. It is likely going to breed resentment in the family. If it matters to you, I would perhaps consider accounting for that in your will by deducting the value of the discount from Henry's inheritance. You are the idiot for how you responded to Lisa, not for selling the house to Henry. A simple you never said you were interested in buying a house, and Henry came to us for help find a house, and you both knew we were selling. You can't be blamed for not knowing information she didn't tell you. However, instead of just stating the truth, you decided to let her know that Henry was more deserving than her, since he has a family and she is, God forbid, childless. You could have taken the high road with a clear conscience, but had to sink down and put your own kid down. When I was 18, I found out I was pregnant with my boyfriend's 21 child. Although I had only just graduated, I was so excited to start a family with him. When I told him the news, he initially seemed excited, but as time went on he grew less and less interested with me and our child. 2 months into my pregnancy, I broke things off with him for 2 reasons. 1. He was not paying hardly any attention to me. He spent the majority of his free time with his friends, and I started to feel like I was no longer a priority to him. 2. He started drinking. He would have a drink here and there, but he was never a heavy drinker. He would come home wasted, and it was honestly annoying. Taking care of myself was hard enough, and taking care of myself and my drunk boyfriend was too much. To my knowledge, he didn't take our breakup very hard, and I was glad. We decided to stay friends in order to give our child the best life possible. I grew up without my father, and that's the last thing I wanted for my baby. About a month later, I met a really nice guy. We hit it off immediately and started dating not too long after that. He treated me amazing, and I was so grateful to have found someone that loved me the way he did. Throughout my pregnancy, my ex was pretty involved. His interest in our child grew a lot after we broke up, which made me happy. I was glad to know he cared. I had planned for him and my sister to be in the delivery room, however, come my delivery day he showed up drunk. I was pissed. I made the last-minute decision to have my boyfriend in the delivery room instead of my ex. I told him that I did not want someone drunk in with me while I was giving birth, and he replied telling me that the alcohol will wear off and he deserves to be in there considering how great he's been to me my whole pregnancy. I told him that I wouldn't change my mind, and he proceeded to yell at me saying how it's just the hormones and I'll regret having a man I just met in there while I give birth. Over the past 7 years we've been able to maintain a, for the most part, healthy co-parenting relationship. I am now married to my then boyfriend, and I have no regrets having him in there with me, but my ex is still sour about me not allowing him to be in the delivery room. He is now infertile and is mad I ruined his only chance at being in the delivery room during the birth of his child. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. He showed up drunk to the delivery room. Let's stop and analyze this statement for a moment. Your ex thought in a moment of clarity, hey, my kid is getting ready to be born, so yeah, it would be a totally awesome time to get blitzed, and shows up to the hospital drunk. Yeah, he is totally an idiot here. You made the right choice. He screwed up his own chances of being in the delivery room by getting drunk. Actions have consequences. His decision to get drunk when you were giving birth was one wrong decision from him, and he had consequences. I mean, if he showed up to a job interview drunk, he wouldn't get the job. If he drove drunk, he'd get fined or would lose his license, etc. So when he showed up drunk to your delivery room, there also were consequences. Tell him that childbirth has the least to do about the father. The birth of a child isn't a spectator sport. The safety, comfort, and health of the baby and mother delivering the baby are the priorities. You didn't feel safe and supported with your drunk ex there, so he got thrown out. The last place a drunk person should be is in a birthing ward. I couldn't think of a less suitable birth partner. Drunk people are extremely volatile and, depending on how drunk, a risk in terms of passing out, vomiting, aggression, falling over. He did that to himself, and the nurses would have had him out of the ward quicker than you could imagine anyway. They aren't at a bar, they are at a hospital. I, 20, recently went to stay with my husband's 25 parents for the first time. Along with him, we are recently married. We'll be here for 2 more weeks. I'm fortunate to get along with his family really well. During the course of the visit, I ended up buying myself a specific kind of pillowcase online to be delivered to me at my in-laws. I have an autoimmune skin condition which is significantly worsened by sleeping on particular fabrics, severe enough to matter, very visible rash plus discomfort. The pillowcase was relatively expensive, but I thought it's fine as I could add it into my rotation at home. My husband was very upset about my purchase and insisted I shouldn't use it. Context: my family is from a somewhat significantly higher economic bracket than my husband's family. It hasn't really caused tensions before, but my husband thought this pillowcase purchase was one. Flaunting my ability to buy something expensive easily too. Shaming his family for their lesser quality pillowcases. He suggested I try using some topical medicine if I have an outbreak. I argued that I absolutely would not mind what pillowcase I sleep on were it not for the skin condition I have and prefer to use the pillowcase because I find many topical medicines ineffective. My husband threw the pillowcase away while I was out with mother-in-law, and on waking the next day my face was red and painful. I bought another pillowcase, intending to keep it hidden and pull it out just at bedtime to minimize potentially offending his parents and pissing off husband, but he found this one as well and basically told me I should leave his parents' home if I am too good to sleep on their pillowcases. I absolutely do not want to upstage his parents' linens or cause them any offense. I like them a lot. I also can't imagine voluntarily enduring skin outbreaks for the next 2 weeks. I feel like I should be standing my ground in this argument, but I also don't want to ruin this holiday with a relatively petty issue. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your husband is for throwing an expensive pillowcase away. That's showing his parents he doesn't have a care about money. You legitimately have a medical condition. It's a freaking pillowcase. It's not throwing anything in his parents' faces and doesn't say that their pillowcases are terrible. One of my friends brings a pillow with a satin pillowcase on it because it's better for her hair. This isn't saying my pillows and pillowcases are subpar, they're just not for her particular hair needs. Do I get offended or think she's uppity? Of course not. I get that she has special needs for her hair care and move on. If you explain to his parents that it is only because of your skin condition, unless they're petty jerks, I'm sure they will understand your choice to get a suitable pillowcase for your needs. You have been very polite about it from the sounds of things, although I do think you're a tad foolish. If you have an autoimmune condition, why on earth aren't you planning for it and taking a suitable pillowcase away on your travels? Honestly, you must have known you'd run into this difficulty, and if you'd been prepared for your illness, then there wouldn't have been a problem. With that said, you didn't do anything disrespectful, and it was wrong of your husband for throwing your property away and making you ill as a consequence. You not only need it to manage a skin condition, but are buying it yourself and, without really needing to considering the reason, being as discreet as possible about it. Rather, it's your husband who seems personally offended by the purchase and your alleged flaunting, due to insecurity over coming from a less affluent background. He also very much is the idiot for throwing out the pillowcase, never mind the cost of it, but that's just immature and disrespectful.